All right, let's get right into it. In the world of cricket, there is one massive question that hangs over pretty much everything. Who really runs the game? It's this constant battle of money, of power, and really the soul of the sport itself. And right at the heart of it all is one organization, India's Board of Control for Cricket, or as we all know it, the BCCI.
Look, to really get a grip on their power, all you have to do is follow the money. And this number right here, that's not today. That was the value of the broadcast deal for the Indian Premier League, the IPL, way back in 2018. Over £1 billion for just one domestic league. I mean, the BCCI doesn't just have a seat at the table, they basically own the entire table. And that, right there, leads us to the big question we're tackling today. When you have that kind of financial power, that kind of muscle, should you be the one to lead the entire sport into the future? Or is concentrating that much power in one place just a recipe for disaster? To even start to answer that, you first have to understand the incredible success story that gives the BCCI its claim to the throne in the first place. The Indian Premier League. So think about it. Before the IPL, a lot of international cricket was seen as this kind of slow, traditional, very British game. Well, the BCCI completely flipped the script. They created a fast-paced, almost Americanized, fan-first version of the sport. And it wasn't just about making the game shorter. It was a total revolution of the business model, with city franchises, massive player auctions, and it worked. It got a whole new, younger generation totally hooked. And you just can't argue with the results. The IPL rocketed to become the most profitable cricket league on the entire planet. Now, from the BCCI's perspective, this wasn't just good for India. They would argue it was good for everybody. All that money flowing from the IPL, it raised player salaries around the world, it helped fund other, smaller cricket boards, and it just massively boosted the global profile of the game. So their argument is simple. Our success lifts the whole sport. But of course, that is only one side of the coin. Because as the money and the power started to pile up, so did the problems. And a whole series of scandals brought this intense new scrutiny to the way the BCCI was actually being run. And this is the real challenge the BCCI ran into. As their influence just exploded, journalists and researchers started asking some really tough questions, like who was truly benefiting from all of this newfound wealth? Now, what's so fascinating is how personal and emotional the criticism got. The journalist Jared Kimber really captured this feeling that so many fans had. It's this sense that the people in charge, well, they were just administrators. They were disconnected from the spirit of the game, and they were treating this public passion like it was their own private business. And this quote, wow, it just perfectly illustrates the problem. Journalist Sharda Ugra described a system that was so secretive that, for years, literally no one could even get their hands on a copy of the board's own constitution. I mean, big decisions were being made informally, behind closed doors. This wasn't a modern corporation. As she put it, it was kitchen table kind of governance. So when the experts really started to dig in, they found the same 4 major failures popping up over and over again. First, a shocking lack of transparency. Second, pretty much no accountability to the public or anyone else. Third, conflicts of interest were absolutely everywhere. And finally, the whole structure was just old and completely unfit to run a multi-billion-dollar global sport. And if you want a perfect concrete example of how this stuff worked in the real world, get this. A clause in the BCCI's own rulebook was specifically changed so that the president of the board could have a personal financial stake in an IPL team. I mean, it's a massive textbook conflict of interest, and they wrote it right into the rules. Well, a problem this big doesn't stay local for long. Eventually, these internal issues spilled out onto the world stage, and it sparked this global demand for reform, not just for the BCCI, but for the International Cricket Council, the ICC itself. And in 2012, this wasn't just fan criticism anymore. A major independent review of the ICC called the Wolf Report delivered this absolutely damning verdict. It said, flat out, that the way cricket was being run was simply not worthy of the game. That's a formal indictment from the highest levels. So, what was the fix? Well, the report laid out a pretty clear roadmap. First, bring in an independent chairman, someone who isn't tied to any one country's board. Next, make sure that board members know their primary duty is to the global game, not just their own nation's interests. Then, introduce a fair one-person, one-vote system. And, this one's huge, make the board's decisions public, bring some sunshine in. Basically, bring transparency and accountability to the heart of world cricket.
So all of this brings us right back to where we started, to that fundamental tension between the commercial engine of the sport and the question of who really safeguards its future. I mean, it's a tension we still see playing out today, right? With all the debates over the IPL dominating the global calendar. It's that question, who really owns our game?
At the end of the day, it really just boils down to this one question. What's more important for the future of cricket? Is it the organization with the most money, the one that created that billion-dollar revolution, or does the game's future rely on a system that is transparent, that's accountable, and that truly represents the global interests of the sport? That's the power play that's going to define cricket for generations to come.